every marriage, no matter how good it is, eventually bumps into problems. Everyday problems.
That's right. And some of these problems kind of sneak up on us quietly, almost like a whisper.
And others are about as subtle as a marching band.
It's true. And I mean, it can be anything. Financial debt is something a lot of couples face.
Infertility, communication meltdowns. Not that we know anything about that.
No, we wouldn't know anything about it. Or even anger. Just lots of things impact us.
The list goes on and on. What you may not know is that your problems can kind of become almost like a tipping point that get you to a place where you realize you love each other more than you ever thought you could.
It's really true. It's almost counterintuitive and surprising, but the truth is, it's our problems we go through together that really make us more connected as a couple.
That's exactly right. And if you'll stick with us through these 6 sessions, I think you'll understand that you can get to a place, in spite of, no, because of the problems that you have, where you'll say, I love you more than I ever thought I could.
With each passing day, I love you more. Baby, you've got a way that makes me love you more. I love you more.
I love you more.
No, I love you more.
No, I love you more.
Oh, even though we've got issues,
Crying through millions of tissues.
I love you more.
I love you more. I've got to share this with you. I love you more. I have to tell you the truth. I love you more.
I love you more.
Baby, I love you more.
I love you more. Though we've got problems, we can solve them. I love you more.
Oh, I love you more.
All you need is love. Remember that old song by the Beatles? You think that's true? You want to sing a few bars for us?
No, not at all.
What about you? All you need is love. Is that true? It's an interesting thought.
It sure is. Take a few minutes right now, turn to session 1 in your study guide and explore that question.
We'll be back with you in a couple minutes. The Beatles have that song, All You Need Is Love. And is that true? Is that all you need in marriage? Is that all that you need is love? Most of us say, well, that's why we got married, because we love each other and so forth. So I want to just kind of toss that out to do a little dialogue on that. What do you guys think? Is that all you need for a good marriage?
Absolutely not. I don't think. I mean, I love love. The love is the fun part, but you need more than that. You need commitment. You need, a lot of patience and willingness to change. I think that's probably as important. You need sex. A lot of people think.
You need good sex.
Some people think love and sex are the same thing, and they're not. So I think sex is kind of a manifestation, a way to show love for your spouse, but it's not love in and of itself.
The thing that I think about is, there's a passage in the Bible that talks about what love is. So love is patient, love is kind, love is all these different things. And boy, if you could just encompass in your life, in love, what all that is, then that is all you need. But that's the hardest thing to do, is to love like that.
What do you think about that?
We've been married almost 7 years, and one of the things I've observed is that there is that initial in-love phase, and I think that is predominantly a feeling. You can't stand to be apart from them. You don't want to hang up the phone. You can't say goodbye, all that jazz. And as you get married and you start to live life and do life, that feeling it does go away. And I remember when I first kind of realized that it doesn't go away. I don't love her less. It's just a different kind of interaction.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is that, we got married. I was 20, she was 19. And, we didn't know anything. The bad part about it is we thought we did.
You didn't know anything. I knew a few things.
If we take a time out here. Okay. But I think there's a lot of factors that go into your definition of love. How you saw your parents, how you saw the people around you, etc. And so you come in with this fantasy and all this kind of stuff, and you find out that that's not the way it is. I mean, you know, you may have grown up in a house like I did, where basically my mother did anything my dad told her. You know, that wasn't happening with Sister Girl. Okay, that wasn't happening. It still ain't happening. All right, we got to have negotiation, all that kind of stuff.
Anybody else?
There were 19 couples that were married kind of in the same year we were married, 19 different friends. And we'd been going to wedding after wedding, and after a while, we went to church with a lot of these folks, and we had begun then to really know each other, and we weren't feeling so in love anymore. And some of these couples were still very, very lovey-dovey, I'll call it. And I felt pretty tough about that, and we went and talked to someone once and said, you know, what's wrong? And he was very wise. He said, you know, you guys, he said, really, you're going to be the ones that are okay, because you're hitting these things head on. You're talking about them, you're facing them. And, you know, and the first year was tough, because then we had to really become friends.
I can totally relate to that. You guys had 3 months, and it felt like it was fast. You didn't really know each other. We dated for 7 years, and I mean, we started right out that first year going to therapy and needed it in order to make those adjustments. And it was shocking to me that here I had taken all this time and been so careful, and yet love was nothing like I had expected.
Yeah, after dating all those years. Right. And, you know, we have this acorn that sits on our mantle at home in our family room. Yeah. You know, anybody that looks at this, in fact, there's a real acorn in here, you know, go, yeah, that's what you need to grow an oak tree. And yet when you get married, you kind of think, okay, we got it. You know, let's go grow our tree.
We've got our love.
We've got love, yeah, you know. But the truth is, we all know you need more than this. And that's kind of what this session is about, is kind of understanding that, you know, you need some skill. You need some things to grow this tree, especially when you encounter problems. We took the time to go around this table. We could all have a litany of tough times we've been through, right? And we certainly did. I think our biggest jolt ever was when little John was born.
Yeah, you know, we were married for 14 years before we had our first child. So, you know, at 35, we got the news we were expecting, and that was so exciting. And then he was born, you know, 3 months before his due date, this little 1-pound preemie.
My wedding band slipped over his entire arm when he was first born, but tiny little
guy.
guy.
Just a little thing, but, you know, was in the hospital for months, you know, multiple surgeries, and just walking through that. And, you know, you begin to realize right away, okay, when you are in anguish like this and you feel vulnerable and your heart just feels, you know, like it has just been open to woundedness, it's pretty hard to stay together, because at first the grief, everyone grieves differently and you're afraid differently. For us, that was one of the most traumatic things we've ever been through, because we waited so long for this life, and then to have it feel like we don't know if it'll be a part of our story.
And I hear couples talk about going through something like that, and they say, we just brought us closer together. And it did for us, but there was a time where there was great tension between us because of this crisis in our lives. And I mean, silly things that we'd fight about. And we started thinking about how do we kind of, you know, convey this point to really drive it home. And as you can see, we brought in this section of this tree. And the interesting thing about this tree is, and help me demonstrate this, because we got a little education on this thing. Touch this thing, by the way. Feel this thing. I mean, it's an amazing piece of wood. It's a 103-year-old tree. It was a 103-year-old tree. And one of the things that we know, in fact, I've just learned recently, is that when you see these wide rings around the tree, it means it had a good year. And when you see the kind of the narrow ones in certain areas, those were really lean years. Those were years when this tree was really going through some tough times. You see right here at the beginning, by the way, this tree was given birth. This was a little limb that shot out from this tree. And, you know, there's a scar over here. Something happened to this tree on
and
this
that
side.
really dark mark is almost like, that's made from sap. It's almost like an injury, you know, an injurious event has occurred, and it's like bleeding, and you can see it lasts for several years. I mean, the impact of that on the tree, but then it has some of its healthiest years.
If you notice, some of the thickest lines in this whole tree's lives are right here, you know, just a few years after this. Really tough time. This is the toughest time for this tree. And it's kind of like that in marriage. You know, if you think about it, if you know how to do this, if you realize that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you you need some skills.
Yeah, and really it's those kind of events that are really demanding that shape our stories as couples.
So our question to you is, if your marriage was this cut from this tree, what rings would be symbolic in your marriage? Which things would you say, that was a good year, or ooh, this one was pretty thin, and what makes up the rings around your marriage tree?
Our first year, personally, I think would have been the lean year. I was 27, Mon was 25, but I was more set in my ways than I thought I was. And so I had more adjustments than I thought I was going to need. And they haven't all been good years since then. There's some lean ones in the middle too, but that first year was an adjustment. And if we didn't really have that commitment through Christ, I'm not sure if we would have made it through that first year.
When nothing, challenging happens, you don't really know what that person's capable of. And what a person does under pressure is way more valuable to you, as I think in marriage, than what they do when there's no pressure. And I'll give you an example. When Aaron had a brain tumor and had to have surgery when he was 26 and I was 25, with 3 little kids at home, that was a pressure situation, and I got to see the character that was really in him, even at 26, come out. So I think some of the things we've been through has shown each other what's really in there.
And would you say that those years following that, did that bring you closer together, or was that?
I think it did. It matured us.
All right, so you guys had a pretty serious ring to deal with.
Yeah, we did. It went on for about a 6 to 7 year period of time, and it was basically through some business activities I was involved with that ultimately led to me pleading guilty to signing false federal income tax returns. And as a result, it was devastating to us financially. It was devastating to us based on the community we lived in, the church we were involved in. I had to be away from my wife and 3 daughters for a 10-month period of time. So it really turned our whole world upside down.
And I totally relate to what you were saying about you really find out what they're made of, and their character or lack of it, if that's the case. In this case, it was not. His integrity and his character just came shining forth. I tell you, coming out on the other side of it, and the maturity that you gain from it, and the depth and the insight that you gain from it, and just watching him go through something that I never would have guessed in our lives that we would have gone through. There were times he would apologize. I'm just so sorry that I've put you and the girls through this, that this has happened. And I could honestly look him square in the eyes and say, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't change it. I would do it again, knowing what we've gained from it has been so worth it. So worth it.
That's an amazing gift. You can't get it any other way. You don't get it through the happy times that don't take any work. You get it when the challenges are so huge. You don't know how you're going to survive them. And then you get this gift of this person that you did this with. It's amazing.
You guys really kind of have a new ring almost developing before our very eyes, because you're fresh in this experience. Talk to us just a little bit about that.
The most just incredible thing we've been through most recently is the in vitro process. We've been trying for kids for about 5 years now, and it's been an amazing, amazing journey.
And the in vitro thing is fresh. I mean, this is like last week.
Last Friday we found out it did not work for us.
And you don't get through something like that just by feeling in love, do you? It's not the feeling of love.
It's not there. You don't have that to rely on. We were hurting. I mean, you're not thinking how much you love each other at the time. You're just loving each other. You're not feeling anything but pain. And then you realize, wait a second, if we're going to get up tomorrow morning and we're going to press on, she's the one. I'm not going to make it without her. And you really realize how important that life partner is. That's what it's been for me. And I've treated her differently. It just forces you to value that partner instead of valuing the experience of marriage.
How about the newbies on the rings in your marriage, which one was most difficult for you guys?
Something happened a couple of years ago. My dad died. And I really didn't realize how hard that was. He died of cancer, and I lost my mother before we got married. And now my wife's parents are really going through something very, very difficult. And the pressure that puts on a marriage.
Yeah.
And you want to be cooperative, and you want to be patient, you want to be kind. And it's like, is there ever going to be any kind of stability?
And you realize that as you go through that on the other side of that, man, we've got to make some changes here, because this little acorn isn't going to get us through that.
It's really the challenges we go through. You know, that initial love is great, but it's really working through life's challenges together that causes us to say to each other, I love you more.
It is true, you know, I mean, this little acorn has the potential to grow an oak tree. I mean, it's the catalyst. Yet it's just not enough. It does need dirt, it needs water, it needs sunshine, and just kind of like the experiences that we have in our marriage, sure, love gets us going. You know, it's that spring that launches this lifelong relationship.
Yeah, but we have to have those experiences, just like you guys described, that really do create growth. And the thing about a tree that you see, you know, when you look at a cross-section like this, is that it is totally committed to growth. And it's the same way for us in our relationships, in our marriages. We're designed to be committed to growth, you know, and to respond to the challenges. And when we do that, that's when our love really expands.
Absolutely. And, you know, so here we've talked about this, you know, is love enough? In the next few sessions, our 5 remaining sessions, we're going to get really specific about how to use problems to your advantage. It's kind of goes counterintuitive, like we say, but really, if you learn how to use your problems to your advantage, they can bring you closer together. And you'll end up saying, I love you more than I ever thought I could.